All right, let's dive in. We're going to tackle two of the biggest questions of our time, our own search for meaning and the explosion of artificial intelligence. And here's the thing, they're connected in ways that might really surprise you.
Okay, look at this number. 89%. Just let that sink in for a second. What do you think that could possibly be? Because whatever it is, it's telling us something huge, something really profound about a whole generation.
That is the percentage of young people in the UK who say their lives have no meaning, no purpose. And look, this isn't just, youthful angst. It's a sign of something much, much deeper going on.
This phenomenon has a name. Cognitive scientist John Vervaeke calls it the meaning crisis. And it's basically this. It's what happens when all those big, shared stories, the religious or cultural frameworks that used to give us a compass, when they start to dissolve. We're left trying to find our way, but we don't have a map anymore.
So, let's get into it. What does this crisis actually look like on the ground? What does it feel like? Because these symptoms, they're not just in our heads. They are showing up all across society.
And honestly, the effects they're devastating. It kicks off with these really personal things, right? Chronic loneliness, this anxiety that just won't go away. But then it spirals outwards. It becomes this widespread collapse in trust, this gnawing sense of alienation, this feeling that you just don't matter. We're disconnected from each other and we're disconnected from any sense of a bigger picture.
And Vervaeke has this really interesting take on it. He says, look, for all their problems, and there were many, religious institutions gave us a toolkit, a set of practices for cultivating wisdom and creating meaning together. And as we've walked away from them, it's like we've thrown out the baby with the bathwater. We lost the tools, but we never found a replacement.
But, and this is super important, Vervaeke isn't saying we should go back. Not at all. His solution is about moving forward. It's a path that involves fundamentally changing how we relate to the world. He calls it awakening to reality.
A huge part of this is rethinking what it means to be a person. Our culture treats identity like something you shop for, right? Something you curate and then defend. Vervaeke draws this massive distinction. He says the goal isn't to possess an identity, it's to engage in the lifelong process of becoming a self. It's a verb, not a noun. And becoming a self means learning to hold two big, contradictory ideas in your head at the same time. On the one hand, you have your finitude. That's your limits, your vulnerabilities, the hard fact that you're mortal. But on the other hand, you have transcendence. That's your incredible capacity to grow, to learn, to overcome your own self-deception. It's about living in that tension.
So, according to Vervaeke, real meaning isn't something you find in a book or an ideology. It comes from waking up to reality. It's about embracing both sides of that coin, our limitations and our potential. It's the wisdom that comes from being brutally honest about the human condition.
Okay, so just as we're trying to figure out this deep, internal crisis of meaning, a massive external challenge shows up on the scene. And folks, this one changes the game completely.
Which leads to the central question of this whole explainer. As we're struggling to even understand our own minds, what happens when we start creating new ones? How do you search for human meaning when the very idea of what a mind is being rewritten by the machines we're building?
And to be clear, we're not just talking about a better chess program or a faster search engine. We're talking about the hypothesis of artificial consciousness. The idea that a machine could have, a real inner life, subjective experiences, a sense of self, the capacity to actually feel.
Yeah, this is a big one. This possibility creates a total head-on collision. On one side, you have thousands of years of philosophy and theology. On the other, the absolute bleeding edge of technology. And it forces us to ask that fundamental question. What is it that makes us human anyway?
You can really boil it down to two competing views. There's the spiritual view, which says consciousness comes from something non-material, right? A soul, the image of God, or imago Dei. Then you have the functional view, which basically says consciousness is just an emergent property of really, really complex information processing. It doesn't matter if the substrate is brain cells or silicone chips. And this really lays out the conflict, doesn't it? If you look at the source, theology says it's a soul. AI says it's computation. What about human uniqueness? Theology says it's based on the imago Dei. AI says, well, our abilities can probably be replicated. It's a clash over the very nature of our being. Is it an eternal soul, or is it an inner experience we can't even be sure exists in another being? The way we answer these questions, it changes everything.
And this right here, This is the existential gut punch that AI delivers. If, or when, a machine can think faster, create more beautifully, and solve problems more effectively than any human, then by what standard do we claim to have any special intrinsic value? What's left? Well, some are suggesting a radical reframe, a new way to define our uniqueness. What if it's not about our cognitive superiority at all? What if our true value lies in our vulnerability, in our relational honesty, our capacity for moral agency, for trying to do the right thing even when it's hard, and maybe most of all, our ability to love, all the messy, irrational stuff that makes us, well, human. And this is where everything comes together. Our internal search for meaning and this external challenge from AI. They aren't two separate problems. They are two faces of the exact same dilemma we're in right now. It's about finding a new kind of wisdom. Think about it. The meaning crisis already had us on the ropes, feeling disconnected, like we don't matter. And just then, AI shows up and comes for the one thing we thought we had left, our claim to being the only truly thinking, feeling beings on the planet.
This is why John Vervaeke's ideas are so powerful here. He says there's this deep, deep connection between finding meaning and cultivating wisdom. The very antidote he proposes for the meaning crisis, wisdom, is exactly what we need to navigate the age of AI.
Because wisdom isn't about having all the answers. It's not a set of facts. It's the ability to truly face reality, the reality inside of us with all our flaws and potential, and the reality of the incredible and kind of scary world we're creating outside of us. So we're left with this one last big question. Is our greatest challenge really about building better AI? Or is the most important, the most urgent project of our time becoming better humans?